Hi, this is Amoroso. Welcome back to Tag Talk. This is our series where we cover topics in cybersecurity and go into some detail around cybersecurity vendors that you may have some understanding of, but we take you way deeper and give you our impression of their prospects and the kind of work that they do and a little bit about the value that they bring to buyers, mostly in a B2B setting. That tends to be where we focus. Today, I want to talk about a company called Bitsight. It's a company that I've been working with for quite some time. I know the principals there. I think they're a wonderful company. They're in this segment known as cybersecurity ratings. Also, kind of in a sense, very related to the way we do third-party risk management, the way we determine whether a partner, a supplier, or even a customer may be acceptable from a security perspective by doing some scanning and generating a quantitative rating. I want to take you all the way back to some things that are foundational in the way we make assessments about things. If you share a generation with me, you remember, used to be these two guys who they were movie critics, we call Siskel and Ebert, and they would do this thumbs up, thumbs down thing. I always use them as a way to kind of motivate the difference between quantitative ratings and qualitative. So these two guys, they would watch a movie and they go, hey, it was good or bad, whatever they do, thumbs up, thumbs down. And if you ask them what the basis was for that, they'd say, our opinion, our experience, this is what we think. We're rendering judgment on this movie and didn't have some big rubric behind it that justified a number. Now, frankly, at TAG, that's the way we rate vendors. We use our experience and judgment to provide ratings. This is different than the kind of thing that you get with a Bitsight or some of the companies they compete with, like Security Scorecard or Risk Recon, which is part of MasterCard. It's different, where in a sense, they have this rubric. It's a ratings methodology that dates all the way back to like the early 1900s. In fact, ironically, you could argue that John Moody, with his Moody's manual, like in the 1909 to 1920, 30, 40, 50 timeframe, when he was producing these documents that would rate the credit worthiness of a company numerically, that was sort of the basis for this. And the reason I say it's ironic is that when Bitsight was founded in 2011, a decade later, they signed this big deal with Moody's, a big partnership. I have a picture that I've seen a couple times of them shaking hands, and I thought it was quite interesting in 2021 when the two companies came together. So the way Bitsight works is you can think of it as looking from an external perspective at a target company and making some determination about risk based on what you can see. I've often described it as if you were standing on the curb of somebody's home and you're looking at the shutters, the front door, the shrubbery, the roof, just a general appearance of their home externally. Think of it as an external surface, or because we're security people, external attack surface. What can I infer about the home? So if the gutters are hanging off and the door is broken and the windows are broken and the roof is leaking, you can see it all broke. What would you infer about the inside of the house? You'd infer that they probably have a very similar profile inside. But if I look and everything's perfectly manicured, everything is working, the gutters are all perfectly aligned, the driveway is clean, the grass is cut, then I might infer that inside they also have similar sort of order and attention placed on making sure that things are working. So that's kind of the foundational basis for companies like Bitsight. They look at what they can collect and then they generate a number and they'd sort of line it up with like the credit score that one of us might get. Let me share with you three observations that I would make about the work that they do, which they describe sort of as exposure management, TPRM, that kind of thing. The first is that clearly Bitsight is a very strong provider. So if you're looking for third-party risk ratings, you're going to do pretty well with Bitsight. I've looked at the algorithms. I think they're sound. And I think today, 2025 and into the very near future, they're as good as anyone. So you're not going to do poorly by making a selection of Bitsight. They are a very sound company. I think that's certainly clear. Second thing, though, is that I do think there's some confusion as to sort of the corporate alignment between Bitsight, Moody's, and then there's this partnership they created called Visible Risk. And then there's an incubator called Teammate that they have an alignment with. When I try to sort through that, it's not always clear to me, and then it would thus not be clear to buyers. So my advice to Bitsight would be make sure you dial up on sort of clarifying how those things work. I suspect that I'll get some email based on this where they'll say, oh my gosh, just read this, this, and this. And maybe I just missed it. But it just strikes me as some complications that give me a little bit of pause. But perhaps the most interesting thing, and maybe the most troublesome thing, is that the idea of ingesting data, doing some processing and spitting out a number sounds like the kind of thing that a generative AI could probably do. Again, the reason I brought up Siskel and Ebert is because these were human beings who are rendering their judgment. Again, similar to what we do at TAG. So I don't know that you'll ever get away from the idea that someone can go to an opera, go to a rock concert, or look at a company and say, here's my opinion. I mean, never be able to take that away from humans. But if I have a strict rubric where I'm scanning and automating the collection of something and then producing a number, well, gee, that sounds like something an AI can do. So again, my advice to Bitsight would be very mindful of the possibility that this whole concept can very easily be subsumed. Now, I think that what should happen, this would be my advice, and this is something that you as a buyer or user of any of these services, any of these rating companies can consider. I do think many of these companies would be wise to introduce a human element to what they're doing. I think that that would be something that would restrict their ability to grow. Like the minute you say bring humans in doing things, that doesn't scale as well. You need people to actually do it. Take it from me, it's our business model at TAG. But I do think moving forward, the value of the rating is going to be less if it's purely automated. I think that confluence of having, that's automated rubric where I collect data. I look at, say, your email DMARC settings. They are what they are. There's no judgment about that. Or if there's vulnerabilities on your website, that's a fact. There's no judgment about that. But then rendering some sort of, say, umbrella statement about these collected items might be a good direction for these companies. Again, it's a direction that I've taken at TAG. So we will see. We'll see how things go. But in the meantime, make sure you download the report that we put onto our website about Bitsight. I spent a lot of time on it. Love to hear from you. Love to hear what you think. And I hope it provides some insight. So make sure that you like and subscribe, and we will see you on our next discussion.